unique approach to hospice palliative care at no cost to those receiving those services. At Ed's House residents, we honor choices while providing knowledgeable end-of-life care for our residents and their loved ones 24/7 by our team of professionals. We pledge to support those entering our doors with care, understanding, compassion, and expertise. And some of you here in that room, or many of you here in this room today, have experienced that. We have been privileged to supporting over 370 residents since we opened our doors in September 2020. Our palliative care community team, based out of Ed's House, supports those with a life-limiting illness, their families and caregivers anywhere in Northumberland County. We provide comprehensive service from time of diagnosis to bereavement, again at no cost. This community team provides services to over 400 individuals every year. So it's amazing impact into our community through not only our resident, but also our community programs. And our goal is to ensure you get the right care at the right place at the right time. So we have in our heckler row here, many staff from community care, also spread out throughout the seats, but I do want to recognize there is staff from Ed's House that work not only at, but out of Ed's House. And their senior leader team of Sherry Gibson, our Director of Hospice Services, and our Medical Director, Kate Everdale, and Megan here if you're interested in hearing about the clinical side of our hospice services with Sharon and our community side. So thank you all for coming, but if you have any questions, talk to any of the community team or the hospice staff and they would answer your questions. So that's my intro for today. I would like to introduce to you the Chair of Board of Community Care Northumberland, Dr. Jackie Lynn Gardner-Nix, to say a few words.
Okay, so welcome everybody. It's lovely to see everybody here, and it's lovely to have this red letter day about these extra beds that we have. Hospice care is about quality of life until death. And that's for all involved, not just the person who is going through that process, but also the family and the friends that are around them. And I want to emphasize how it is quite different from dying in hospital. If you're not lucky enough to drop dead on the pickleball court, which is what my husband would prefer, this is definitely the next best option, I would think. So I want to also emphasize that when freestanding hospices come into being, it's always a community government, provincial government collaboration. So it cannot be done without the community. And I think people were talking about wanting a freestanding hospice about 10 years ago in this area. And Community Care Northumberland acquired the oversight for the hospice volunteer program around 2014, 2015, and saw that the government was getting more interested in putting out some tenders, I guess, for those who wanted to establish freestanding hospices. No easy task, but there was interest in the community sufficient that in 2015-16, things began to get actioned. And to start with, there was the Capital Campaign Committee to raise the funds. And this was chaired by Gordon Patty Lay, and on that committee, and I apologize if I leave any names out, there was Lynn Hardy, Petra Becker, Sharon Wharton-Spry, Stuart Richardson, who's here today, I know, Nancy Oliver, Jennifer Darrell. Some of you are here today, and you really put your shoulders to the wheel and began to raise the funds. And amazingly, in a very short period of time, came up with $10 million. And that 10 million was enough to establish the building, or the selection of the spot and the building of the facility, and also the first 2 to 3 years of operational funding, which naturally had to come as well. And this actually happened, even despite the pandemic, almost on time. And the people that were selected to build the hospice was Dalryn, and I believe the owner is here today. Can you put your hand up?
Matt James.
Matt James, yes. Don't know, he was on the list. But, okay, all right. There he is, okay. And so between the building committee, and the building committee consisted of Stuart and Leslie Benson, Ian Lancaster, Ross Quigley, who's not with us anymore, and Art Seymour, and staff, of course, of the hospice. Staff that were included in all of this was Trish, of course, as ED of the CCN, Sherry Gibson, Denise Kiersey, Linda Kay, of course, and there are probably others I haven't mentioned, but this was a heroic strategy to get this place built. And I think the first people to be admitted to the hospice was September of 2021? 2020, which is even more impressive because that was right as everybody was in shutdowns and so on. So it really got going on time, and it's been a boon ever since. Somebody had the brilliant idea of not just producing 6 beds that were kitted out, but to add another 4 suites that were roughed in to potentially be a 10-bedded facility. And the government, the provincial government, heard when there was a clamour for more palliative care beds in order to preserve the acute care beds, in order to provide more quality of life up until death. And so in the last year, they came forward, and there were channels which I know David helped to keep open, so thank you, David, in order to ensure that funding was forthcoming. It's still required, though, that the community raises funds in order to equip those rooms and finish them off. But that can be done fairly quickly and effectively and efficiently, and then we will have our 10-bedded facility. Currently, the community provides about 40% of what is needed to operate the facility, and the government and grants provide the other 60%. And in addition, another good idea was to have a foundation for the hospice, a board that would predominantly look at how to keep the funding going to keep the facility operational. And so that board came into being in the last 2 years. Their prime objective is to raise the funds to keep the operational costs supplied. Community Care Northumberland is the employer and the runner of the hospice, and also of hospice in the community and the volunteers that go out and come into the hospice. And they ask the foundation board for the money it takes to keep the hospice funded. Did I get that right, Sherry?
That you did.
Thank God. Okay. All right. So that helps you to understand what's going on. It helps you to know how important community is. It helps us to recognize that the community is an amazing one locally that actually provides these funds, that actually puts their shoulder to the wheel to get these funds. So I'm very proud of being part of Coburg and Port Hope and seeing what amazing things can happen. And I want to thank everyone here for all the work that's gone on in providing our 10-bedded facility. Well, it's about to go from 6 to 10 beds, and the amazing work that CCN does, and how Trish is now elevated. You're overseeing double the budget now, Trish, from when I came 5 years ago. And so we made her, we promoted her from executive director to CEO. Okay, and she's doing a very good job. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Trish, and thank you, Dr. Gardner-Nix, for your remarks. And thank you to all of you for being here. Community. You heard that term a few times. Community, the greatness of the community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members. Who said that? Coretta Scott King. That's Dr. Martin Luther King's wife. And that's what today's all about, community and the actions of a community coming together. And I think there is no greater cause that can galvanize a community than hospice care, compassionate end-of-life care. And you'll hear about the impact, and it's famously said that people truly understand when a family member and or a loved one or a friend has gone through hospice, and how important that is for providing dignity in someone's final few hours. So today is really all about you. I mean, thank you. My words are but words for this community, because if it's not for all of you, this wouldn't have happened here today. When this hospice was built, and I remember the sod turning, it was a few months after I was first elected, and I remember getting pulled by the ear by Brian Reed that day, who said, we're gonna rough in 4 additional beds. You better provide the funding. And there's nothing more exhausting than, you get there, it's like, it's a sod turning and you think, this is good, we're moving, and they're already pulling your ear for more money. So it's, as all of you know, when we're leading campaigns to raise money in the community. So that was an important formative day that I remember, and I appreciated the foresight and what Brian had said, and the foresight of all of you to rough in that additional room. It's exactly, mimicry is the greatest form of flattery, and it's exactly what I said to the Marigold team in Clarington as they looked for that additional final bed. Rough it in. You'll hold government, I just sort of counterintuitive, you'll hold us over the pork barrel if you do that, because then you've got us, and it was such a wise move by you, the community, to do that. I just want to, again, underscore how important it's been for all of us to come together to support compassionate end-of-life care. And today, I'm proud to announce, as you heard, that Premier Ford, our government, are proud to provide additional operational funding for the 4 additional beds to make this a 10-bed hospice for good. So, thank you. Thank you to you, the community, for believing in hospice, for backing hospice, for supporting it. It alleviates pressure on the hospital system. It provides compassionate end-of-life care, dignity, supporting our loved ones. This is in addition to additional top-up funding that the government's providing for the 6 existing beds, which will take our investment that I'm announcing today to just shy of $1 million. And this is part of a $147.4 million investment over 3 years in communities across the province to provide palliative care closer to home. This is in addition to a $53.8 million investment over the next 2 years to increase funding for hospice. Increase funding, get this, by 45%. This is truly staggering, 45% increase. Healthcare matters in our community, and I think we can all say the status quo is not working. So you have to be innovative. That's what this community's done, alleviating that pressure, dignity and end-of-life care. And we will come as a government to back that, to back innovative care, and to provide the much-needed support for our healthcare system. This will provide support for new hospice in communities like Norwood, who've expanded their day programming. Of course, we have the existing bridge, and we just broke ground with an additional capital investment in Marigold Hospice in Clarington. So hospice is alive and well in our community, and it is providing support to family and loved ones. On a personal note, because today is about you, and on a personal note, I truly first, I think, grasped the greatness of Ed's House when I heard that my friend Troy Hull was in Ed's House. And then fast forward to calling another friend who grabbed me by the ear when it came to sports in our community, Ross Quigley, who's not with us. And I spoke with Ross when he was in Ed's House, and just the hearing someone's at home, and that's what it's about, being at home with your family and loved ones. So he's not with us here today, nor is Troy, but you have made an impact on the lives of those families. And I also want to acknowledge Ed and Diane Laurent, who formative action, Peter, who's here today, for what they've done. And most recently, another friend of mine who's such wise advice and had the opportunity to invite me to a really formative experience with youth in our community, and that was Michael Parker. Michael's been such an advocate for Rotary Youth Exchange, and I'll never forget that time I went up to Trent University and spent an afternoon with him. And why do I say these stories? I know, and when you're at the podium, you can never pay respect to so many who deserve respect, and there's all of you deserve it. But these are the faces of our community leaders who've given so much, who aren't with us here today, but who matter, and providing compassionate end-of-life care for them and for others, free of charge. For the names perhaps who aren't as active in our community, but who matter just as much, families who get up each and every day to work hard in our community, who are provided free care. So thank you to the clinicians and to the healthcare professionals who work there. Thank you, Trish and Sherry, for your advocacy. I mean, you've got to know that public policy is a two-way street, and they're always in the office advocating with government, and I greatly appreciate that. So in closing, thank you for having me here today. And to the Parkers, who you'll hear, their words are better than any in underscoring the importance of hospice. So thank you all for your support of Ed's House and Hospice.
Better take these off. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Trish, and thank you, MPP David, for your your tireless efforts for your constituents in Northumberland. We appreciate it. We are grateful to see all of you here today, and this will be my recurring theme, is gratitude. I've been asked to speak on our experiences at Ed's House earlier this year. Before I get to that, I need to tell you what led us here and who Michael Parker was. Ours was a love story that started when we were 17 and we met in high school. I became a registered nurse and Michael took architectural technology at Ryerson. We married at almost 21. He became a general contractor and owner of 2 companies, Partac and Delrin Limited. Last year, we were able to celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary with a road trip down east in our Mustang, like old days. I am grateful for those 50 wonderful years. Michael was a proud member of the Rotary Club of Cobourg for over 40 years. He served as club president when we had 3 wee children, and he served at the district level and was assistant district governor for several years. His love for Rotary showed by his perfect attendance for over 40 years. Michael was a loyal, devoted husband, terrific dad, a coach, a friend, a caring son, a brother, mentor, and gaka to 4 wonderful grandchildren. He was a quiet man who shared generously, gave generously, and loved me and the kids unconditionally. So what led us to Ed's House? Several years ago, Michael had stage 3 colorectal cancer, and we were able to treat that naturally, but Michael did end up with a colostomy, a permanent one. And over many years, he developed a hernia at the colostomy site, and that's not uncommon. He'd been put on a long waiting list for the hernia repair, then along came COVID and more delays. He was finally scheduled for a laparoscopic hernia on January 6th of this year. He was relatively healthy, 71-year-old. On a trip down to Kingston, I teased him and said he'd be modeling once again for GQ. Surgery went well, or so we thought. When Michael was leaving the recovery room, he made a stop so he could thank the staff and tell them he was grateful for their care. The first day post-op was uneventful, up for a short walk, and chatting with the staff. The second day, he was sleeping a lot and was in much discomfort. He should be coming home that day. About 60 hours post-op, they discovered a discharge at one of the laparoscopic sites. This was not good. They rushed him into emergency surgery where they discovered his bowel had ruptured higher up. This was due to the CO2 used in the laparoscopic procedure, and he had adhesions and the bowel separated. He became septic. He was placed into ICU where it was touch and go if he would make it. After 2.5 weeks in an induced coma, powerful drugs, he was not getting better. Michael's feet were turning black, and he would have had to be amputated, and his kidneys were in failure. I went home, laid on my bed, and I prayed. I instantly had an answer and immediately fell asleep for the first time in over 2 weeks. The next day, I said to his amazing team that Michael cannot live like this. His feet would have had to be amputated. He would have been on dialysis 5 days a week, and he would have had no joy. As a family, and with his team, we talked this over, and made the decision to let Michael die peacefully and with dignity. I wanted him back in Coburg and at Ed's house. At this point, he had to be brought out of the induced coma, and due to the massive amount of drugs given, this took a few days longer than expected. As Michael was emerging from the coma, I explained what had happened, and as he became more conscious, I explained again what was happening, and he said, "It looks as though I'm dying." I said, "Yes, you are." And he accepted it gracefully and stoically, and that's who he was. Dr. Emma Smith, a family friend of Trenum and Brett's, took on the arrangements for Michael's admittance to Ed's house, and luckily, there was a bed available. He was transferred on Thursday, January 19th, in an ice storm. Our daughter, Hope, accompanied her dad and kept in touch with me constantly. She said Dad was in a lot of discomfort, and I relayed this to Emma, who had an injection ready the minute Michael was admitted to Ed's house. Michael was placed in one of the beautiful rooms overlooking the field. He had a colorful gown and a matching pillowcase. He was made comfortable, and we were made comfortable. I told you that Michael had perfect attendance at Rotary. Well, the next day, being Friday, he insisted on attending Rotary by Zoom. He wasn't going to miss his last Rotary meeting. Over the next couple of days, Michael was visited by so many people, and the staff at Ed's house took it in their stride. I'm not sure if he still holds the record for the highest number of visitors or not.
Yes.
There's your answer. There were stories told, and some may even had some truth to them. Goodbyes were said, and many tears were shed. On Sunday morning, Lynn Hardy arranged for some Rotarians to gather outside and have a sing-along with Don Owen on guitar. Was that too much for the staff? Absolutely not, they informed me. They bundled Michael up with warm blankets, and we took him out on the back porch, and he even sang along as best he could. And for that, we are grateful. Now, I can tell you about the amazing care at Ed's house, but you've already heard about that before. I can tell you that there was no request too big or too small, but I'm sure you know that as well. We were made to feel welcome and cared for. Our 4 grandchildren came to see Gaka at Ed's house. The 2 youngest, Trenum's 2, were 9 and 11. On the first day or so after lunchtime and Trenum hadn't eaten, Donna Rousseau made him a delicious sandwich. Hazel, then 11, was eyeing this sandwich up. Trenum told her to go and ask Donna if she would make one, but being a bit shy, she wanted her dad to go with her. Donna made Hazel so comfortable, the next day she went on her own for one of those amazing sandwiches. Thank you, Donna. Did you know the kitchenette has muffins, coffee, and a fridge full of treats? Did you know the kitchenette has candy? Well, it does, and to a 9-year-old boy, that is worth its weight in gold. After getting a bag of jujubes, little Willem declares loudly, "I love this place." And what's not to love? A day or so later, when the kids couldn't come, we made sure a bag of candy was sent home to the kids, and we told them it was from Gaka, and they were pleased. I mentioned earlier that Michael had owned Delrin Limited, but had sold it on retirement to Matt James. The reason I mention this is that Delrin was awarded the contract to build this fabulous building. Rotary made a pledge of $300,000 to the construction, and Ed Lorenz was a longtime Rotarian as well. With these connections, it only seemed right that this was the place for Michael to spend his last few days. When Michael died, when anyone dies at Ed's house, there is an honor guard to walk them out. And this is one of the most heartfelt moments. Friends, family, and staff walked with the deceased to the waiting vehicle, playing their favorite music. Tears were shed. Our time at Ed's house is over. But our contact is far from over. There are follow-up calls and the offers of grief counseling and support. In order for Ed's house to continue this wonderful care, they also need your support and are grateful for all that you're able to do. One thing is for certain, we are all going to die. We don't know when, but when that time comes, I hope you get an opportunity to choose someplace as fabulous as Ed's house. We did, and we are grateful.
We're certainly grateful for the time we spent at Ed's house with Dad, and I'm exceptionally grateful for the time I've spent there afterward. When grief comes along, you don't know what to do, and you don't always know what direction to go or but with support from people at Ed's house, there's programming there that helps you connect with other people of the community that are going through the same thing as you. And it can help in so many ways, but just knowing that you're not alone, going through this new experience that maybe you haven't felt before. And there's caring people that give you confidence to become yourself again. And it's not a straight line. It's not linear. It comes and goes, and you don't know what to expect. But they're there to help you get through it. There's individual counseling, and recently I started group counseling. And it's not something I ever thought about before, but when you're in it, I'm just so grateful that it exists for me and everyone else going through grief. And when you have to relive it, and even listening to Mom relive those thoughts of the times that happened, and processing it isn't always easy. So to have somebody in a group help you process those thoughts and those memories when they're difficult, it's okay to talk about it, and it's okay to be with other people going through it. And Ed's house offers so much more than just the time you're there with the person who is passing. It's the time after. It's so much longer. And to get through it is, you don't know what you're up against until you're in it. And I'm grateful to Winnie, to Sherry, to Nancy, to Donna, and everyone else who has offered to help. It's not just Ed's house, it's all the people in the community that ask, hey, how you doing? And you're not always doing okay. But we will. And I miss our dad. I miss my sister. But if you're missing somebody, there's always a place to go to talk to somebody about it. And they care, and they'll help you get through it. And the funding of this place, places like this, helps so many people. Thank you.